Now, we are calling it the next big healthcare crisis. But why should I, as an individual who is, 30, 40, or 50 years old, really start worrying about dementia?
The dementia just not affects the individual, not just the family, not just the society, but it's the community at large. And that's why it's one of the biggest health crises at the moment. The truth is, dementia is not just memory loss. So dementia sorts of affects memory, it affects language, it affects comprehension, it affects your executive function, it affects the activities of daily living. What we understand about dementia is by the time the signs and symptoms show to you, you're already about 10 to 15 years late. If I don't remember who I am tomorrow, I don't exist. The world around me don't exist. Everything that I know is my memory. Okay, this is my son, this is my husband, this is my father, this is what I do, this is who I am. And that's your identity. What happens when a condition takes away that identity from you? So one, age is a non-modifiable risk factor, but here you have 14 risk factors where you can act, you can do something. If you do something, your risk of getting dementia can come down as low as 45%. So it is important that we work on those risks.
It is being called as India's next healthcare crisis. Currently, 88 lakh Indians are living with this health condition. As India grows older, those numbers will only increase. In fact, these numbers are all set to double by 2036, which is barely 9 years down the line. Now, merely growing old puts you at risk for this health condition. And Indians are particularly vulnerable because we are already the diabetes capital of the world, and diabetes is a key risk factor for this health condition. But here's the problem. In most cases, this condition is diagnosed only at a fairly advanced stage and it has no cure as of now. I'm, of course, speaking of dementia. And because most of us know very little about dementia, I have called in an expert on the longevity shot to help us understand dementia better. Joining me is Ramani Sundaram. Ramani, welcome to the longevity shot.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Now, Ramani, let me tell you, is a neuroscientist by training. She's also an MBA. She has spent over 15 years in dementia care with the Nightingale's Medical Trust, which is one of the oldest organizations involved in dementia care in India. She's also the driving force behind the Dementia India Alliance. Now, that is probably India's first pan-Indian organization to address dementia diagnosis, treatment, and care. So I can't think of anybody better qualified to explain to us what is dementia and explain to us about the scale of the problem. So, Ramani, I will begin by asking you something very, very basic. Now, we are calling it the next big healthcare crisis. But why should I, as an individual who is, 30, 40, or 50 years old, really start worrying about dementia?
Right. So I think a part of it you actually covered in your introduction, right? So why are we calling it like a bigger health crisis right now? Because our population is aging, and we know that the aging numbers are going to be huge because of the sheer population size that is going to be there in India, right? We are looking at around, I think, 19% of our population being elderly by 2036 or so. That means it's a huge number, and dementia is one of the risks, one of the conditions that affects elderly people a lot. So we're talking about an aging population where dementia is going to be one of the major challenges. And if you look at India, there is 7.4% prevalence of dementia in people above the age of 60. Now, you quoted a number called 88 lakh people with dementia, and that was in 2021 with respect to a study that was done in 2019. So we have that as our last estimate number. So the true numbers today, we really don't know. Could be somewhere near to 1 crore people with dementia at present. Given age is one of the important risk factor for dementia, we all need to be worried about it because we are all going to age. Aging is a reality. So it is going to affect us all. I heard one of the sayings about dementia when I was practicing in the UK is that 25 years down the line, either we may have dementia or we will be caring for somebody who has dementia. When I was in the UK, that was said. But in India, I think what is going to happen is either we may have dementia, or we may be caring for someone with dementia, or we might be a colleague, a neighbor, a close friend to someone who has dementia, or caring for somebody has dementia. So all of us are going to be affected by this condition, and it is important that we know about it. The kind of impact that dementia has is very different than any other conditions, any other medical condition, because dementia has three kinds of impact, right? There is the medical impact of the condition itself that the person goes through. Then there is the social impact of the condition, because the caregiver has to leave the job, sit at home, look after somebody with dementia, or they have to hire help. That is so expensive. So there comes the financial impact. That's why we say that dementia just not affects the individual, not just the family, not just the society, but it's the community at large. And that's why it's one of the biggest health crises at the moment.
It is very easy to confuse dementia with aging. I mean, let's look at it this way. Uh, as you grow old, it's quite common to forget where you kept your keys. Now, how is dementia different from the forgetting or the decline associated with aging?
The truth is, dementia is not just memory loss. We say that it is decline of cognitive function, and cognitive function is just not memory. Memory is one part of cognition. So, dementia sorts of affects memory, it affects language, it affects comprehension, it affects your executive function, it affects the activities of daily living. That is very, very important to understand. A general memory loss doesn't actually affect your activities of daily living. You go about doing your activities. But when someone has a memory loss due to dementia, it affects their activities of daily living. So, how do I differentiate? Say, for example, an elderly person forgets his keys or forgets his glasses. Now, that doesn't actually cause an impairment due to which he's not able to function. Now, think about someone who has a memory loss due to dementia. Say, you are someone who knows how to use remote to operate the TVs. Nowadays, the operating of a remote itself is a complex task with all the buttons and the dish and that Netflix, Amazon. It's a complicated activity, okay? So you have learned that activity. What if the memory loss doesn't allow you to operate a remote? Now you don't know how to switch on the TV. You don't know how to operate a remote. Now this is affecting your instrumental activities of daily living. What if you were someone who knows how to operate a computer? One fine day you have confusion in how to operate a computer. A person with a normal memory loss will not have such problem. He may have some slip of memory here and there. He may have some confusions here and there, but that wouldn't really impair him to actually operate what he was doing earlier. So that's the difference that people need to understand. Usually in aging and in dementia, there's a very thin line in between. And that's the reason diagnosis of dementia is a complicated task. Many times what happens is the signs of dementia gets brushed upon like the signs of aging. Right? So, does that mean we all need to be scared? No, we need not be scared. We should look at it, say, for an example, diabetes. Okay, whether you have it or not, every year we all would do a test to see whether we are diabetic or not. The HbA1c, it will tell us whether you're pre diabetic or you are at the borderline or you are diabetic. Why do we do that test even though we are not diabetic? Just to keep a check what's happening. Just like that, for dementia, since the signs are, really, you have to really watch out for those signs. It is easier that anyone above the age of 55 really gets a cognitive test done just to check what is happening with our cognition. See, we are so careful about the medical aspects of our health. We are so careful about the blood parameters, but we are not really so sensitive about our brain health parameters. So, just to put it in a very simple way, aging related memory loss does not really impair you from doing your day to day activity. Number one. Number two, it doesn't get worse with time. Number two. Number three, that kind of memory loss doesn't isolate an elderly. They don't think that they cannot talk to somebody or it's really affecting them adversely in a social environment. But in a memory loss due to dementia, all of this will happen. The person will not be able to function independently. It may get worse with time, or it always gets worse with time. And number three, they usually isolate themselves because they're able to see that they are impaired and people around them are picking it up.
Okay, but you mentioned something about a cognitive test, like we do a test for diabetes. Now, I was reading stuff on a Reddit chat room yesterday while preparing for this, and one of the questions over there which came up time and again was my parents are not willing to undergo a cognitive test. They keep telling me that I'm not mad. How do I get them to test for dementia?
That's a question we are still trying to answer. So there are two, three important messages that we need to put out there. See, when a condition, I say that dementia doesn't have cure. One of the possible questions that we always get is, if it has no cure, why should I know about it?
Hmm.
Going to get worse. Why should I know about it? I'm better off without knowing it. Right? That's one thing that you may get most of the time. So what we try to tell them is, when you do a cognitive screening, we are not substantially screening only for dementia. We are trying to see, is there anything else that is treatable that is actually causing a cognitive decline? And many a times there are many treatable things that might have causing the cognitive decline. See, there is vitamin B12 deficiency, there is vitamin D3 deficiency. You could be anemic, there could be hypothyroidism, there could be depression, which is not actually seen in elderly or picked up in elderly very easily. Elders are highly prone to depression. The spouse passes away, you are going through a post retirement phase, children have left the home, there's so many things going on in your life. It could be due to depression, it could be due to some underlying medical condition like untreated diabetes or hypertension. So there are things that could be treated. It could be hearing impairment that you have not looked into, which is actually causing the memory loss because you're not actually hearing things properly. So there are these correctable things which also we pick up in a cognitive test, which could be number one. Number two, when you are able to provide a timely diagnosis of dementia, there are many years you could be independent. You still have, decision making skills. You can decide for yourself. So it is important that we put those messages out. And we also put this message out that if we pick up that you are at the risk of cognitive decline, now that we know that there are risk factors. If you work on those, there is a possibility of minimizing your risk. There is some sort of prevention that is possible. So these are the hopeful messages that we need to put out so that people convince themselves for cognitive screening. And as I said, why would you screen for diabetes? Diabetes is also not treatable. There is no one pill that is going to really cure diabetes. You have to manage it. And there is no one single management here. You pop the pills, diabetes is not going to come under control. You have to do diet, you have to do exercise, you have to do your medicine, you have to do regular checkup, you have to take care of your heart, because diabetes never comes alone. As you have diabetes, other conditions will keep on adding to it, but still we go for testing. We would still want to know whether we have diabetes. We would still want to know whether we want to get early treatment. Why not for dementia? Everything is quite parallel that way.
Exactly.
So
And would it be right to say that just like, diabetes hollows out literally every organ in your body, dementia hollows out the person you are over
absolutely,
a period of time?
absolutely. And diabetes affects you in many ways, but dementia just not affects you, it affects your family. Tomorrow, the dependency is so much on the family. We have seen people with dementia where families have gone into pieces, marriages have broke, the children don't know what to do. There have been suicide pact because they can't leave their father or mother alone at home. They're only, when I ask them, what's your name? They don't even identify themselves as Ramani or Kavita. They would say, I'm a family caregiver. See, that is not your identity. You are you. Family caregiving is a job that you do. But for people with dementia, family caregivers think that that is their 24/7 job. So for your family, get yourself tested.
Right. And, when you talk about testing, what does the testing entail? I know I'm going off track, but I think we need to address this. Does it involve, and a lot of people have this fear of MRIs and CT scans. Does it involve something like that? Is it very expensive? How much time does it take?
See, screening in general is completely non-invasive. It's just question and answers that are asked during a cognitive screening. It's a simple paper pencil test or an app-based test now because of advent of AI and technology. It's a simple question answer test. So we may ask you, say, for example, your name, your age, what sort of family you come from, when did you retire, what are the major events in your life. See, many a times what happens is we need to know what are the major events in your life. As a loss of spouse triggered a memory issue, has loss of job triggered a memory issue, loss of a friend triggered a memory issue. In an aging population, say I'm 70 and I have friends who are all 70, say two of them die, I have a fear that it's me next, right? So there could be so many things that could be contributing to the clouding of cognition. So we may ask you those questions. We may ask you about all the risk factors. There are about 14, 15 risk factors that we may ask you. Do you hear okay? Do you see okay? Do you have diabetes, hypertension, fall,
So
stroke, etc.?
where can I go for this test across India?
So see, we provide it. We provide it online, we provide it offline, and you wouldn't believe our cognitive screening tests are free. Still, we have such low footfalls for cognitive screening. And the test only takes about 20 minutes. So there are questions that we ask. Then we may ask you certain questions like what's the day, what's the date? Can you remember these three words? Can you draw a clock for me? It's something that is totally non-threatening. And once people finish the test, most of them will fly off with full marks. That's the truth. And we want most of them to get those full marks. And we tell them, come back after 6 months. So it's free at Dementia India Alliance. We do it both in person, we do it physically, we also do it online. Online, we have a platform called DEM Clinic, DEM Clinic, wherein people can book a cognitive assessment from the comfort of their home. The reason we went online is there is stigma to actually walking out to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. To eliminate the stigma, we said, okay, fine, let's do it online. To eliminate the factor of cost, we said, okay, let's make it free. We really have done everything to address all the factors that would stop you from getting yourself assessed. And also, the tests are quite simple. We would like everyone to take the test, but it is sensitive enough to pick up if something is going on. And we are able to sort of do it. So there are other platforms as well. You can walk into any neurology clinic, geriatric clinic in hospitals, they would do it. Or there are online cognitive assessments available at another platform called Live Ivory. We work with them very closely. So they also provide, but they provide it for much younger age group. People can get tested even when you're 35, 40, you can get yourself tested. Ours is mostly 50 plus. So we try to do it mostly at 50 plus people. So there are various places where you can get a cognitive assessment done. So, it's just about taking that first step towards your brain health and getting it done. And it's not a responsibility only of an elderly. It's also the responsibility of young people who have elderly parents at home, because they may not know the importance of brain health, but we all know.
But staying with dementia and the basics of dementia, now another disease that a lot of people, or another condition that a lot of people confuse it with, is Alzheimer's. How is it different, or is it almost the same?
See, dementia is an umbrella term, right? It's a combination of many things. So when we talk about dementia, it's a combination of signs and symptoms, right? So we say that dementia affects, as I said, many cognitive abilities it sorts of affect. And dementia has many subtypes. And one of the subtypes is Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia. If you look at the West, Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. That's why we have very much awareness about it. If you look at the US or the UK, all the association that promotes the cause of dementia would be called Alzheimer's Society, Alzheimer's Association, Alzheimer's Disease International, because in the West, Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. But then in India, if you actually see, there are many other types of dementia also that are on rise. Internationally, they are on rise. You talk about Alzheimer's, there's vascular dementia, there is frontotemporal dementia, there's mixed dementia. Then there are more rarer forms of dementia like Lewy body dementia. There's Parkinson's plus dementia. So there are different kinds of dementias that are available. In India, if you see, we believe that perhaps it's mostly mixed or vascular dementia that are more, because the reason being we carry a lot of vascular risk factors, whether it is diabetes, hypertension, or cholesterol. We are perhaps the diabetes capital for the world. So we know that we carry a lot of vascular risk factors, number one. Number two, in India, it's very difficult to identify whether somebody really had Alzheimer's disease, because brain donation is again something that is not very well known in India. And for us to finally say whether somebody has Alzheimer's, the post-mortem diagnosis is like the 100% diagnosis that yes, there is Alzheimer's disease because we're able to see the proteins and all of it. So what I would say is Alzheimer's is a type of dementia, but that is not the only type of dementia that does exist. There are many other kinds of dementia, and mostly in India, we need to be aware about vascular dementia, mixed, and frontotemporal as well.
Now, say I take the cognitive test. Uh, who is the doctor that I need to go to if, say, there is a problem?
So if you have some sort of signs, the first thing would be get a cognitive assessment done. As I said, there are multiple places where you can get a cognitive assessment done. But if there is a problem, there are three people who can help you. A, neurologist who can help you. B, psychiatrist who can help you. Three, geriatricians who can help you. So all these three specialties do look at dementia. In many places, what happens is people only go to neurologist. One thing what we have to understand is whether it is neurologist, psychiatrist, or geriatrician, in India, the number of these special doctors are very less. So it is important that we know that there is a wider opportunity available here. You need not only go to a neurologist. You have a neurologist, very good, go to them. But you can also go to a psychiatrist, or you can also go to a geriatrician. All of them look into dementia.
Right. You did tell us the difference between aging and dementia, but if you were to pick 5 or 6, red flag behaviors that that could predispose you to dementia, or that is probably a hint that you have dementia, somebody has dementia, what are those behaviors?
So see, simple thing would be you start with memory loss, okay? If you're having memory issues, you feel you have memory issues, or people around you feel you have memory issues, that should be your first warning sign. That means people are observing, you yourself are concerned about it. So, it could be that you're not able to remember recent events, you're not able to remember where you were maybe 2 months back, whom did you meet. These are the things that you need to be watchful about. Or you're repeating the same questions again and again, and people around you are telling you that you just asked me that question just about 10 minutes ago or half an hour ago. Why are you asking me the same thing again and again? So that is something that you need to be really watch out. You need to really look out for. If it is a man, then it is something about, are you going to your bank again and again? You're checking your statements again because you are concerned, whether what happened, what were the transactions that you did. So that is something that you need to be watchful about. Or are you going and locking your door again and again without really remembering that you had locked it? You're going and checking it again and again. The things that you need to be think about. If you're a woman, are people in your family, if you're somebody who cooks, people in your family, are they saying that you are adding too much salt, or you feel that you did not switch on the gas sometimes, or you forgot to switch it off, those kinds of misses. And if it's happening quite some time, then you need to be really watch out. You really need to look out for that. So that would be number one. Number two is mixing up names. You're forgetting words. When you're talking in a conversation, you have difficulty in really, you say that this, I know the word is just there, but I'm not able to remember those. So those words, you're forgetting words. So that is something that you need to really look out for. Names.
Again, Ramani, just to interrupt over here, we have a lot of these videos on social media also, and of course, what Ramani just told us is very different from the typical behavior where your mother tells you, "Kitchen में जाओ, उस shelf पे रखा हुआ वो डब्बा लेकर आओ." That is completely different, and what Ramani told us is completely
Yes,
different.
yes, it's completely different. The important words you're forgetting. For example, say you want a water bottle, but you are not able to get the name that it's the water bottle. So those kind of things. Also, in a conversation, words that you used to use very easily, you are having slip of memory. So that is also something that you need to think about. Any change in personality. Are there any frequent changes in personality? Are you seeing something that was not seen earlier? The pre-morbid personality was something different, but nowadays the person is behaving in a different way. See, one of the things that people with Alzheimer's or dementia would do is try to mask the impairment that they have. And one of the ways they would mask it, say, for example, I'm forgetting quite often, and I don't want you to know about it. So what do? I become a little bit of a recluse. I just don't talk to you, and I say, I'm busy. I want to be by myself, because I perhaps understand that I may have a memory problem. But if I talk to you, you are able to sort of recognize that memory problem. So recent changes in personality, are they becoming irritable?
What
Are
about
they,
aggression?
sorry?
What about aggression?
Yeah, I was just going to come, whether they are becoming more irritable, they're becoming, they're showing anger. You're saying, Appa, I just answered that question a while ago. You just have to, sort of put blame on me. I'm not like that. So those kind of things you need to be watchful about. Number four would be suspicion. They are misplacing things and they are saying, she took it, he took it. I think the maid had taken away my keys. I had put it there only. So those are things that you need to be really, really watchful about, because these are the initial signs that you may really, pick up, but you may just put it like, it's perhaps normal aging. And another thing we usually also see is people may go out to buy something or something, they want to go to a friend's house. They will have confusion in finding their way to that particular place. They may have confusion and they just come back and tell you. They will not tell you they had that confusion. They will just come back and tell you, I'm feeling tired, I don't want to go. So these are kinds of things that you need to watch out for.
You also have, been telling us that it is a multi-stage condition, right? And you said that you could get a number of good years. Now, so explain to us, how does it really progress? How does dementia progress?
See, what we understand about dementia is by the time the signs and symptoms show to you, you're already about 10 to 15 years late. So your brain has been fighting those changes for quite some time. And what it is, doing it very efficiently, but now it can't do it anymore. So already the changes have been happening in your brain, but there have not been any visible symptoms. So there is a preclinical stage. And currently, we do not really have any test that can pick up those preclinical stage. Of course, abroad and worldwide, there are research on CSF markers, blood biomarkers, just to identify those things. But there is a stage called mild cognitive impairment. They are very difficult to pick up on a test. But then you will have the slip of memory once in a while. People around you may say that you are forgetting. But when I do a cognitive test, you may actually score well. But then there is a memory issue. See, when there is a memory issue or there are issues with executive function or language and you feel it or people around you feel it, you are at the stage of mild cognitive impairment. But that means there is a risk. And what happens is when you are in mild cognitive impairment, nearly 40% of them may reverse and be normal. But then those 60% may still be at the risk of progressing. So you need to follow up those people very carefully. So that's the first stage, mild cognitive impairment. The second stage is mild dementia, the mild stage of dementia, the first stage of dementia, wherein those lapses in your activities of daily living is happening, and it could be more at the instrumental level. It may not be more at the basic level. So what do I mean by instrumental level? You may have difficulty doing your, say, online banking. You have issues with that. You are unable to operate a computer. You have an issue with operating a microwave. You have difficulty in taking care of kitchen chores, especially the gas and the complicated cuisines. You're having problems with that. So those are the mild stages of dementia where you may still be able to function, but then abilities are slowly going. And this can be picked up on a screening test. It can very well be picked up on a screening and a detailed evaluation. So in mild dementia, if we are able to pick up people there, diagnose them there is so much more that we can do. But people will not come to us at this stage because very much it looks like issues with aging, a little more issues with aging. So people don't come to us at that particular stage. Then there is the moderate stage of dementia. In moderate stage of dementia, it is affecting the activities of daily living. So people will have difficulty with, say, doing their daily tasks, being independent, going and buying a packet of milk or having what do you call, a rational conversation, or managing their money, managing their finances, able to cook independently. Some people may also, moderate stages is quite long. Okay, people can be mildly moderate and they could be severely moderate. So in severe moderate stages, what also happens is when people are well into moderate stages, they may also have difficulty in brushing their teeth, taking a bath. They will have confusion to those. And one of the very important things that happens in moderate stages of dementia is your cognitive abilities have deteriorated quite a bit. Your language, your memory, your executive function, all of that has deteriorated quite a bit. So what happens is there are so many gaps in your brain, and the brain will fill those gaps with certain kinds of hallucinations, delusions, and there'll be a lot of behavioral problems because you don't have memory of that. So your brain tries to build up stories around it and you will try to fill it. So what happens is people are very difficult to manage during those stages. And one of the very important problems that family caregivers would face is aggression, hallucination, delusions, and also wandering. People may just wander off, they may get lost. So these happens during the moderate stages of dementia, and it is usually a longer stage. So the family really has to put in a lot of effort in carrying somebody in the moderate stages of dementia. Severe stage is when all of it has deteriorated quite a bit. So the person may not have any communication ability left. They may be, they may have a lot of issues with mobility. So the person may be wheelchair bound or bed bound. The person may no longer be able to do any of the activities of daily living. So the person may be completely dependent for, oral care, they may be completely, see, even in moderate stages, people will go into diaper, but in the end stages, they're completely be bedridden, diaper needs to be changed. And, they may also have difficulty with eating, swallowing. This is the time when people go into riles and PEX tube and stuff like that. So they're completely bedridden. There's no communication. That is the last stage of dementia. So that's how we divide dementia. So mild, moderate, and severe. And it could be anywhere between, 2 years to about 12 years. People that I have seen patients who progress really fast and everything is over in about 2 to 3 years. We've seen patients who have lived 12 to 13 years as well. So it's a long, it really depends. And we really don't have an answer why somebody would go through all these phases and be done with it in 2, 3 years. And why is someone living through it for a really long time? We really don't know. So that's how it is when dementia progresses.
And I guess that's why, in a sense, it's called the long goodbye.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it is
Absolutely.
also called a dual goodbye, right? It's a dual goodbye. Why? Because at certain moderate stages of dementia, the person is already gone. You have to say bye to the person you used to know. That is the reason when we talk about dementia, people say, oh, it's memory loss. No, it isn't. It isn't. It robs you of all your see, if I don't remember who I am tomorrow, I don't exist. The world around me don't exist. Everything that I know is my memory. Okay, this is my son, this is my husband, this is my father, this is what I do, this is who I am. And that's your identity. What happens when a condition takes away that identity from you? And also, what we also have to understand is when we talk about quality of life, what is quality of life? When I am able to choose what I do with myself. See, dementia takes that very important decision making skill from you. Somebody else decides that when you wake up, what you eat, how much you drink, what you wear, when you should go to toilet. And when you go into the last stages of dementia, somebody's on Ryle's tube, somebody else on PEG tube. The very basic of the want to eat, the want to feel full, you don't have the rights anymore. Somebody just dumps the food in your stomach and you have to digest it. See, that's the reason that we have to talk about the quality, not the quantity. It's not about living longer, it's about how you live. That's very important.
So, and like you told us earlier, there is no cure for it. But why is it that, while we are all very close to a cure for cancer, at least that's what we are being told. With COVID, we got a vaccine within a couple of months. Why is it that for dementia, there's nothing?
See, I think it's also because dementia, the brain by itself is a very complicated organ to understand. We have not understand it fully. You know, it is a very complicated organ to understand, number one. Number two, what also happens is in brain, some cells, if they die, there is no way that you can replace the same cells. It is not possible at all in the brain, right? And that's the reason when people talk about, in a very funny manner, people talk about this brain transplant and stuff like that. We can never do it. We know that it is not possible. It's perhaps going to take us many years to really have that solution, right? Each cell of the brain has a function. When that cell dies, even if you get another cell there, it's not going to have the memory of the same cell that used to have earlier. Brain works with connection. So if there is one cell, it would have formed a unique connection. When you put another cell there, it will not form the same connection that the earlier cell used to have. So brain is a very complicated human organ. Number one. Number two, when the cells die, they're dead. There's no way those cells are going to come back, right? So that's why, it is very difficult to really have a cure for even stroke, for that example. You can only rehabilitate to a certain extent. There's no 100% sort of a recovery or replenishment that is going to happen. So when it comes to dementia, it's a complicated condition. There's a lot of proteins that is involved. People are saying it is due to immune. See, we don't even know what is the real cause here. There are many reasons why dementia could happen. There are many theories. There are many branches of research, people say it could be due to amyloid. There is one group that believes it's amyloid. There is one group that would believe it is tau, it is the protein misfolding. Now there's another group that believes it's perhaps immunity, it has got to do with inflammation. Now there's a new group that believes that it is due to gut health. Gut health is related to dementia. So there are many, we really don't know what is that one reason why someone gets dementia. And when you come to vascular dementia, there is vascular issues that are involved. How are you going to correct those vascular issues? We have no cure for diabetes. So definitely those changes in the brain are going to happen. When you have no cure for diabetes, how will you cure the diabetic related changes in the brain? So it's a complicated condition. That is the reason we really don't have a cure at present. Of course, there are definitely drugs which will which are able to manage dementia symptomatically. Currently, we have those drugs which are able to provide some quality of life to an individual if diagnosed early. And in last 2 3 years, there have been some newer drugs that have been developed in the US, now got an FDA approval, which are now used for mild stages of Alzheimer's only. And those drugs at present are very expensive. They have reached till the Middle East, Dubai, but by the time they come to India, and how expensive they will it be available for public use? And if it is available for public use, it will only go for people who have pure Alzheimer's. How are we going to know who has only pure Alzheimer's? So the challenges are many, but I'm cautiously optimistic that perhaps some years down the line, not perhaps in my lifetime, but then some years down the line, we may have a cure. But there is one very, very good thing that we know, that there are ways to reduce your risk. There are ways to age with good brain health. Now, that's a key to a lock. If we don't open it, then it is definitely something we cannot forgive
So,
ourselves.
I like how you phrase it as a key to the lock. So Ramani, I was about to ask you this. If there is no cure, what are the risks? How can we reduce the risk?
Or some steps towards prevention. Of course, there's no 100% guaranteed immunity here, but then you can definitely age healthy with good brain health. So, what can you do? There are 14 risk factors that Lancet has put out, right? It has got education first in early life, education. If you have more education, you naturally have more protection towards dementia. So now education is something you cannot correct at present if you're in your middle life. But then as government, there is a policy level thing that you need to do, that every child gets education, because brain health is not something you can develop at 30s and 40s. It is a lifetime thing. From early life, we should have good brain health. So start with education in early life. That is your first and foremost thing. More educated you are, you're more protected. So that needs to be.
Ramani, sorry to interrupt, but when you speak about education, most of us finish off our education in our 20s, maybe 25 by the time if you choose to do a post graduation, then most of us get into, working and all of that. Now, if you are someone who continues to like keep yourself updated, continues to go and study in a way, does that also help?
Absolutely. See, what are you doing? You're forming new neuronal connection. You're going on forming new neuronal connection. Of course, you're working anti what dementia is doing, right? It is killing your neuronal connection. You're doing more. You're building your more neuronal connection. So, of course, it is very, very helpful. In fact, that is again one of the risk factors that have been put in the Lancet study, right? If you come to the middle age, see, middle age, when you say it can span anywhere between, say, you take 20s to your 45, so you have a large window to really work on your brain health. So what all we should do? We are talking about midlife obesity. See, in India, obesity is a huge problem. Midlife obesity is definitely a huge problem. Many of us, due to COVID, working from home has really destroyed many of our lifestyle, right? So midlife obesity is a huge problem. So if you are able to work on your midlife obesity, it is going to be protective to your brain, not just your brain, but your heart will also tell you thank you. So, midlife obesity is one. Physical activity is another. Go get your 120 minutes a week. Get it. That's all what somebody is asking for. 30 minutes, 4 days a week is all you need to keep yourself going, your heart and your brain to be in good health. So get your physical activity. Number 3, sugars. See, sometimes in many research paper, Alzheimer's is also called the diabetes of the brain. Okay, so sugar diabetes has a very, very close connection to your brain health. So it is important that we ensure that we look after the diabetes. If managed well, if treated well, that risk you're able to reduce. Then we talk about hypertension, because when you get diabetes, what happens after certain years? Hypertension becomes inevitable. It comes. So look after your hypertension. Number five, look after your cholesterol levels. LDL cholesterol in India is also added as one of the risk factors. You need to look after the LDL cholesterol level. Next, head injury. In India, so many people get head injury just because we don't wear helmet when we are driving, when we are riding. And the pillion, thinks that you have to wear helmet because police will catch you. No, you have to wear helmet so that you protect your head. That's what you need to understand. It's not about really getting caught by somebody. It is important to protect your head. So you need to do everything to ensure that you don't injure yourself. So head injury is another thing that you need to look at. Next is all the wrong habits, smoking, alcohol, both of it, tobacco. Smoking, alcohol, and tobacco are bad for your overall health. It is even more bad for your brain. So it is important that we stay away from those. Alcohol, definitely in moderation. Smoking and tobacco, it's a big no. So that we need to be careful about. Then depression is another thing that's a huge risk factor. See, loneliness is an epidemic. WHO says loneliness is an epidemic in the world. India is a country with billion of people, but you could be still lonely among people. We think being around people is addressing loneliness. No, it is not. Loneliness is about where you are not able to share what you're going through, even though if you're among your friends. So that's not how it works. You need to have circle of people with whom you're able to share. You're able to sort of, have your happiness, sadness in a group. You have a confidant in your life. So that's very important. So loneliness is again a risk factor. Depression. See, these are all treatable. So depression again is one of the risk factors for dementia. Depression in younger adults is still we are able to pick up, but in elderly, it really doesn't come off. So it is important that you get screened for that. Hearing and visual impairment, again, easily correctable. These are also risk factors for dementia. And then, of course, another one that we really cannot do anything about it is pollution. So pollution, air pollution, again, is one of the risk factors for dementia. So we should see that even though we cannot do much to the air pollution bit, but if you are going to polluted places, try to see if you could wear a mask. One of the highest risk factor for dementia is age. You cannot do anything about it. So one, age is a non-modifiable risk factor, but here you have 14 risk factors where you can act, you can do something. If you do something, your risk of getting dementia can come down as low as 45%. So it is important that we work on those risk factors.
And like you also pointed out earlier, Ramani, you said that early on in the answer. It is not just dementia. By doing all of this, we are actually reducing the risk for a number of diseases, including
Absolutely.
diabetes, heart disease, stroke, etc. Right? So
Yeah.
it's in that sense, it's a force multiplier. If
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, when Lancet released the 14 risk factor, I think we shouldn't call it the risk factors to dementia, but we should call it what are the ways that you can age well with good physical and brain health? Because this is not just about dementia. Whatever risk factors they have listed, it is something that also affects your physical health, social health, and cognitive health. It is a comprehensive risk factor listing that has been done. So don't do it for dementia's sake. Do it so that you age comprehensively well.
and of course, don't just test for your physical health, test for your cognitive health,
Absolutely.
which
Absolutely.
you pointed out. Right. And that's a great place to end this conversation. Ramani, thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with us on the longevity shot. So here's what we know now. The bad news, there is no cure for dementia, and most of us are at risk for it. However, the good news is that it can be prevented or delayed, especially if we pay attention to our health and modify our lifestyle, especially those 14 factors that Ramani detailed. Now, the biggest takeaway for me, and it should be for you also, is that by modifying those 14 risk factors, we will be cutting down our risk not just for dementia, but also for a host of other diseases, including heart disease and stroke. And we'll also improve our chances at living healthier longer. A downloadable PDF of that list is available on our website. The link is in the description. But to me, this sounds like a great deal. And if you want more content on longevity and healthy aging, make sure you follow Never Too Late. We will follow this up with a conversation on the facilities, the care facilities for dementia that are available in India, the costs, etc. Subscribe now so that you don't miss out on that very important conversation. Thank you for watching.